Welcome to the Explainer. So, look, we're living in the golden age of the side hustle, right? Whether you're picking up an odd job online, maybe helping out a neighbor, or just answering a local ad, we're all looking for ways to make a little extra cash. But we almost never stop to think about the situations these gigs pull us into. Seriously, they constantly drop us into incredibly vulnerable, totally unfamiliar spaces with people we literally know nothing about.
Where are you going? Just imagine looking down at your phone and seeing that text message, a message sent from a complete stranger, pinging your screen at the exact second you're climbing out of their window, running for your life into the dark. It's just pure, chilling dread.
I really want you to put yourself in the shoes of someone taking on a temporary gig today. How much do you truly trust the strangers who hire you? In this explainer, we are dissecting 3 harrowing, real-world accounts from people just trying to do their jobs. But more importantly, we're going to use these stories to figure out the psychology behind why we so often ignore blindingly obvious red flags when our own safety is on the line.
Okay, case study number 1. The phantom babysitting job. Theme: deception. Let's dive in.
So 15-year-old answers a Craigslist ad for what sounds like the easiest money ever, babysitting a 6-year-old named Rose. The mom seems completely normal on the phone. She even talks to the teen's mom to verify everything. But the second our narrator arrives, the vibe is just off. It's 9:30 p.m. The house sits totally isolated at the end of a dead-end street surrounded by these huge trees. The mom has actually already left for an overnight shift, leaving the keys hidden outside for her. The house is dead silent, yet super bizarrely, every single light inside the place is glaringly turned on.
Now watch how incredibly fast this escalates into absolute terror. The teen arrives alone at 9:30. Within 15 minutes, while she's just trying to learn the layout of the house, she finds a strange man standing in a pitch-black bedroom, just staring out the window into nothing. No way, right? She immediately barricades herself in a guest room, which, by the way, doesn't even have a lock. By 10:15, heavy footsteps march down the hallway and stop dead right outside her cracked door. 5 minutes later, she forces the window open and escapes into the backyard.
The contrast between what she was promised and what she actually found is just horrifying. I mean, she expected a sleeping 6-year-old. Instead, she found a bizarre, smiling man missing a front tooth who seemed to just silently teleport from one end of the hall to the other. She expected signs of life, maybe some toys. Instead, she finds these old, yellowed children's drawings covered in dust on the fridge. She expected a safe home, but found every other bedroom door firmly locked. And the craziest part? When she panic-called the mom super casually claimed it was just her brother with dementia.
Which brings us right back to that terrifying moment. She drops from the window, sprints a block away, and pulls out her phone to call for an emergency pickup, only to get this text from the mother. "Where are you going?"
The real mystery here hinges on one totally unanswered question. There were 0 cameras visible inside or outside that property. None. So how on earth did the mother know the babysitter had just escaped? Our narrator never found out who that toothless man was, why those doors were locked, or, honestly, if little Rose even existed at all.
Moving on to case study number 2, the empty condo basement. Theme: the unexplained.
So, we're pivoting to a completely different kind of workplace hazard here. 2 teens, our narrator and a university student named Jen, are hired to clean out an abandoned, low-income end-unit condo. The previous tenants had clearly bolted in a massive hurry. Now, the gig starts out totally mundane. Packing up left-behind junk, scrubbing a filthy kitchen, physically wedging this completely broken oven drawer back into place, and unscrewing glass light fixtures to wash them. Normal stuff. But then, things get weird, fast. That heavy oven drawer they had to literally kick repeatedly just to wedge into place, it suddenly slides halfway out onto the floor, by itself. And not just once, but twice. Then, while they're working on entirely separate floors, both girls clearly hear voices calling their names from empty rooms. And the grand finale? While the narrator is balancing on a ladder, a wall switch physically flips itself on, startling her so badly she drops a glass fixture and it smashes to the ground. Now, picture the layout of the space they have to sweep next. It's the basement, and it is basically an unfinished concrete box. There's a single hanging light bulb, a washer, a dryer, and that's it. No closets, no weird little alcoves, literally nowhere for a human being to hide. They head down and sweep it together. They are definitively 100% alone down there.
So they head back up to the main floor, super relieved to be done, right? They're standing maybe 2 feet from the open basement door. when suddenly, heavy footsteps boom from the concrete below. And then, those footsteps break into a full sprint. Something invisible is charging up that twisting staircase, incredibly fast and impossibly loud, coming directly at them. They just slam the door shut and sprint right out of the complex, leaving literally everything behind.
All right, case study number 3, the hostile house guest. The theme? Willful ignorance.
The story is wild because it shows exactly what happens when an employer actively gaslights you about lethal danger. A teen hustler takes a week-long farmhand job for an older couple, Richard and Elaine. The timeline goes completely sideways on day 1. He hears heavy pacing right outside his unlockable bedroom door at 3 a.m. Day 2, the door cracks open and someone is whispering at him from the dark. Day 4, he literally wakes up to find Elaine standing right over his bed holding a kitchen knife. By the final night, she is violently splintering his bedroom door to get to him.
The most frustrating part of all this is the pure gaslighting. The reality is terrifying. We're talking shadows in the hall, knives hovering over the bed, and the teen actually finding a fresh, literal bloodstain right on his backpack. But Richard's excuses are just relentless. Oh, she wanders from bad dreams, or she thought the guest room was empty, and that bloody backpack? Richard actually claims he accidentally cut himself and moved the bag. I mean, it is textbook manipulation.
But, the house itself tells the real story. The teen finds a dented metal walker lying next to a broken picture frame covered in dried brown stains. There are these deep, drag-like scratches all along the hallway walls and puncture holes in the downstairs doors. And crucially, Richard actively refuses to give the teen the Wi-Fi password. He is completely isolating this kid in a rural farmhouse with terrible cell service.
So, it's 2:30 a.m. on the 4th night. The teen wakes up to the sound of his makeshift door barricade slowly scraping across the floor. Elaine is standing right in the doorway, doing this heavy mouth breathing. She walks straight up to the side of the bed, holding a kitchen knife down at her side, and just whispers over and over, "You don't belong here."
On the final night, it all boils over. Richard is attacked downstairs. The teen hears glass shattering and Richard groaning in pain. Then, Elaine charges upstairs. She starts violently rattling the doorknob and splintering the wood with some kind of metal object. The teen kicks out his window screen, drops onto the porch roof, plunges into the bushes, and just runs blindly toward the road, right as Elaine steps out onto the porch wielding a heavy fireplace poker.
Trust your survival instincts, the psychology of denial. Let's unpack this.
So we have 3 completely different scenarios here, but they all share a totally fascinating psychological through line. Think about the number 2. That is the actual number of previous caregivers Elaine had violently attacked before Richard knowingly hired a teenager to live in his house. He completely hid her violent history just because he didn't want to put her in a care facility.
So, why didn't the teen just pack up and leave on day 1? Why didn't the babysitter run the second she saw that guy in the window? Well, it all comes down to a concept called normalcy bias. It's this super powerful cognitive bias that literally forces our brains to minimize threat warnings. We desperately hold out hope that things are normal, mostly because we're deeply afraid of being perceived as rude or overreacting or just being dramatic.
Look at our sources. The pattern is identical across the board. The 15-year-old babysitter tried to justify a strange, teleporting man lurking in a dark house just because the mom threw around the word dementia. The condo cleaners tried to blame bad metal rails when a wedged drawer literally launched itself out of a cabinet. And the farmhand? He sat there and accepted an old man's transparent lies over a literal bloody backpack because he didn't want to bother his mom at work. Normalcy bias almost cost all of them their lives.
The hustle is very real, and hey, the desire to just push through and finish the job is strong. But you really have to ask yourself, if you were in their shoes, standing in that pitch-dark hallway, sweeping that terrifyingly empty basement, or staring at that bloody backpack, would you have ignored the signs just to be polite, or would you have finally trusted your gut? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and seriously, stay safe out there.